everybody. We're going to start now. We've got a lot of readers, so we don't want to go over our allotted time that we have this room, so we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jordan McNeil. I'm the head editor of the online literary magazine, Jenny Magazine, and then also this semester I am the head editor of the YSU undergraduate print literary magazine, Penguin Review. So I'm winging this. I don't have this written down, so I apologize for random spaces like this right here. I'm really glad at the turnout. Sorry we don't have enough chairs. It's always hard to judge how many people were going to come out. We've had some real small events before, and so I was kind of picturing that, but this is awesome. Thanks. Sorry to those of you who have to stand. The people who work here to give us the chairs have left for the night. So I don't know, maybe you guys can play musical chairs, sort out, whatever. So just little reminders of things that you can do while people are reading. There is still plenty of food over there. Please help yourself, because otherwise I'm going to have to figure out what to do with it at the end of the day. And we have raffle baskets, 2 tickets for $1, and then copies of the Penguin Review issue and the companion zine for Jenny Magazine are over there with Bridget modeling them. And those are free for you to grab, and we've got a lot of copies, so if you haven't grabbed one, please do. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into our readings. First up is Tom Pugh. Tom Pugh is a writer from Youngstown, Ohio. He graduated from the NeoMFA and holds a degree in creative nonfiction. He was a founding member of Jenny Magazine and is proud to see what it has become. Tonight, he'll be reading from his piece, The War Hero.
Thank you, Jordan. All right. I remember going to A&W in Boardman with my grandpa so often that we had a booth, and the owner knew both of our names. We sat across the street from Pizza Hut. Grandpa had 2 Coney dogs and chili cheese fries. I had a team burger and cheese fries. We both had root beer floats and frosted mugs. I still contest that nothing beats those floats. We went on Tuesdays because it was Coney Dog Day, and Grandpa always said not to tell Grandma we went, or else we couldn't go again. I shut my mouth because I liked our trips out. I didn't know why he made that caveat until he died of trouble following a routine heart procedure. During one such Tuesday, I had exciting news to tell Grandpa. Grandpa, you know Spielberg, the guy that made Jurassic Park and Hook and Indiana Jones? And he cut me off with a laugh. Yes, I know Spielberg, he said. Is he making another dinosaur movie or something? No, he's making a World War II movie, just like you were in, I said excitedly. Oh, Grandpa replied. He said it's going to have the most realistic D-Day Battle of Normandy scene ever filmed, I practically yelled out. Oh no, Grandpa said and stared into his frosted mug. What's wrong? I asked. Somehow, I had made Grandpa upset by talking about the world's greatest movie director, the be-all and end-all of spectacles. Why wasn't Grandpa excited to see his youth relived? I think, Grandpa began, that Mr. Spielberg should not film movies about the Holocaust. I think that no movies about World War II should be filmed. And I think he should stick to films about dinosaurs and Peter Pan. He should keep making children laugh. Oh, I said. I realized what I had done. I broke a golden rule. Inadvertently, I made Grandpa think about World War II, something that I knew was off limits. I knew I'd find out one day why, but I never meant to offend my hero. Soon after that, our secret sojourns to A&W ended. I never found out if that conversation was the trigger, but I knew that when he left, he was not happy, and that was enough. Grandpa was in a coma for what seemed like forever during my 12th summer. He went in for surgery the day after Father's Day and was buried around the time school began that year. The adults put a ban on grandchildren under high school age visiting the hospital, and all I could do was sit at home and imagine exactly what was happening to my grandfather. I imagined which tubes were attached to which places. At this point in my life, I was addicted to ER, which over-dramatized every last detail of hospitals. Grandpa, in my mind, was attached to all of them. My father broke the adult-imposed no-child rule and took me to the hospital to see Grandpa. Grandma and my mother, aunts, and uncles took up the entire waiting room. They all went silent when I got there. My dad gave me the room number, and my mom looked upset and saw me there. "Do you want me to go in with you?" she asked. "No," I replied. "I'll be fine." I was right. Grandpa had tubes in to help him breathe and to feed him. His teeth, dentures, were in, but they looked off color. He looked much skinnier than he already was. This was a hard accomplishment because Grandpa was already lanky. His hair looked much thinner. He looked frail. His skin looked like rubber. He did not look anything like my joking grandfather. He didn't look like the grandpa with the stash of Werthers next to his recliner. This was some other guy with a Paul C. Latour name at the bottom of his bed. I touched his hand and shivered. It was freezing. I whispered into his ear, "Grandpa, I don't know if you can hear me, but on TV, people say people in comas can hear loved ones. You need to go now. It's okay to go. We'll be okay. I promise." And after that, I collapsed into a chair and cried until my mother came. She looked at my father and said, "This is why." I didn't visit the hospital again. I was put on the really not allowed list. I wish I could write he died the next day. He lived for a while after that. One good thing came from Grandpa Latour's death. It meant that the golden rule was officially off the table. The younger generation could ask the adults pretty much anything we wanted to hear about the war. I still wasn't allowed to talk to Grandma about why people were so depressed. I found out at school. I also learned more about the war. I saw Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan, which indeed opens with a very detailed and graphic Battle of Normandy scene. One man calls out for his mom as his guts are unfurling in his hands. It was my mom who told me one of the most interesting war stories about my grandpa. These stories were off limits when he was alive. Story 1. Grandpa's battalion was sent to Normandy. Every single one of his friends and person in that battalion died. Grandpa was out of commission because he had to have a hernia operation. He found out the information afterwards. Well, that explains his A&W reaction. I can't imagine the guilt he carried. His hernia was an unbelievable stroke of luck. But every single one of the boys dying is something I'm amazed he got through. I could understand why he didn't want to see and didn't want anyone else to see what his friends went through. Knowing it was probably bad enough. Story 2 came from multiple members of my family throughout the years. Story 2. Grandpa became friends with a Nazi POW, and the two were pen pals for years after the war. The German's name was Adam. He didn't believe in the Nazi cause, and even visited the family on a trip to America, and then again when he decided to settle here. He gave Grandpa his metal swastika in one of his packages with express directions to teach the children using the metal swastika so the hate doesn't spread again. My mother described Adam as a nice man that came for dinner. He was friends with Grandma and Grandpa. They did not talk about the war. There was no arguing. There was no political talk. They spoke as friends do. Former Nazi and American soldier, best friends. I had to know more, but there wasn't more to know. As a nonfiction writer, this puzzle drove me insane. No one seemed to know where exactly the swastika went until my grandma died, when it was handed down to me in a tin full of my great-grandfather, World War I, and my grandpa's badges and medals. Looking through the tin, I always felt closer to my grandpa. I can look at his badges, and thanks to Google, I know what almost all of them are. But the one which intrigues me most is the one sent to Grandpa, which was used for years to inspire hatred. The one Adam wanted to be used to inspire kindness. I had to contact Adam. I asked my mother for his last name. Surely there would be some way to contact him through his grandchildren or children or someone in the family. I'm a grade A Facebook Lincoln stalker. I'd find Adam. I wasn't going to ask any painful Nazi questions. I wasn't even going to tell his children or grandchildren he was a Nazi. Something tells me they probably just know Grandpa was a German immigrant. I was a Nazi probably doesn't come up during dinner. Hey, Mom, what was Grandpa's POW's friend's last name? I asked. She gave me a long last name that I'm holding back for privacy's sake. Why do you ask? I'm just doing research. I was looking in the tin and had some questions about Grandpa. Okay, she said, interested in my work. Type in his name and see what comes up. I typed in his name and we got a LinkedIn profile. Obviously his son, who's doing quite well for himself. It was followed by multiple Facebook links. Finally, we got a Youngstown Vindicator link. Mom, does that say what I think it says? I asked. Oh, Adam, my mom said, looking sad. It was a link to Adam's obituary. Not wanting my journey to be a complete failure, I clicked the link so I could learn more about this mystery friend of my family, the Nazi POW, the Latoff family legend, Grandpa's war story that was more than a swastika and a child's story in a tin box. I had to know. Together, my mother and I learned about Adam. He died in 2007 in Arizona, 10 years after my grandpa. He moved to Youngstown in the late 1950s and got married. He had 4 children, and they all went on to be successful. One of his sisters still lives in Germany. I wonder if his family had golden rules about asking Dad or Grandpa about the war. And I wonder if he told them. I wouldn't ask them or even contact them. It seemed an unfair thing to do to a man that wanted to bury that part of his life. Having grown up and learned about the war, I now know my grandpa is not the guy who offed Hitler, but he's still my war hero. I'm thankful for his hernia, even though he may have felt guilty for it at times. I'm glad he met Adam, even though no one in my family seems to know how it happened. And finally, I'm happy for Adam that he found a type of happiness in Youngstown with his family. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know how to work this thing. Hi, hi. My name is Lexi Baryak, if anyone knows me. I'm assistant editor for Pain Review, and I am interning for the Jenny. So I'm just going to introduce the next reader. Shannon Maple from Warren, Ohio is currently a junior pursuing a BA in English as well as a minor in Latin Studies and Creative Writing at Youngstown State University. Besides writing poetry, Shannon enjoys gardening, backpacking, kayaking, jogging, strength training, and playing MMORPGs. I have no idea what that is. She'll be reading from her poetry in Pain Review.
Thank you. I have 2 short poems. The first one is Feroce. I simply don't know how to love or nurture those affections you throw over my back as we sleep side by side, with my knees poking the very heart that could instantly burst if my tongue were to spew the darkness that naturally dwells behind the curtains of my zinnia-filled garden, which ironically I planted to impress you. The mercenary fields. Just hang us all from the taking tree, next to lark eggs and stinging bees, where life begins in spring blossoms, as petals fall on hungry possums, letting blood flow down to the roots of life's giving bark in soldiers' boots, who stay against their intelligence on the battlefields as SUV elegance, waiting for that final burst of rage, preferring noose to canary cage. Thank you.
Okay, our next reader is Dom Fonts. Dom Fonts is an undergrad English major at Youngstown State University. Some of his work can be found at Calliope of the University of Mount Union, Pain Review, the Jam Bar, and the upcoming summer 2017 issue of 3 Elements Review. He will be reading from his piece, Need Some R&R.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be reading a part of my story, about half, and then you guys can check out the rest in the book. Need some R&R. As he suspected, and unlike most special agents at the Plant-like Supernatural Bureau of Investigation, PSBI for short, Jackson Dove had to help others during his vacation day. He'd spent the last week or so mending a failed marriage-to-be in Beaver Creek, Ohio. Esther Hale of Spruceville had been perched, blubbering in her chest, on the bridge near Hamilton Mill for the better part of a century. Agent Duff mostly dealt with humans. He was a Vedmak after all, but occasionally dealt with quarrels between ghouls, phantoms, demons, nymphs, etc. A third of the case was spent consoling Esther as she cried on his shoulder. Another was spent telling human partygoers that the weeping sound was just creek water burbles. And the final third was spent searching for Esther's would-be groom, who stood her up way back when. Needless to say, Agent Duff smoothed out all grievances, and the wedding was back on. Fortunately for him, however, he would not be there. He was given a vacation day. He needed some R&R, rest and relaxation, but unfortunately was stuck babysitting Romulus and Remus, and Romulus had gone missing under Duff's watch. Agent Duff had always thought Ilya to be a great friend and a hard-working single mother. Her children were infamously known to all folkloric and mythical folk to be massive handfuls. Truly, they were strange little people. Stuck with the minds and the bodies of 7-year-olds, the twins had beards thicker than Agent Duff himself. As soon as the two were dropped off at Agent Duff's Washington, D.C. apartment, where he stayed to overtly work with the FBI, he shaved them clean. Ilya had dressed them up like quality gentlemen. With polo shirts under their wool sweaters, blue jeans, and little brown boots, their hair combed neatly, Duff thought they'd look like they were ready for a full 18-hole round of golf. Romulus carried a stuffed black wolf with an ear torn off, leaking white fluff. Ilya smiled sweetly to Duff, kissed his cheek, and went off to our lunch date. The boys smiled up at Uncle Jackson, their fangs like pitchfork prongs overlapping their bottom lips. They immediately tackled and gnawed at his calves. Duff rolled his eyes and chuckled. Taking them to the local park seemed like an ace idea to Duff. They were kids, he thought. They were wild kids, and kids like parks. He'd never thought that the purple-painted steel monkey bars would shred from the frame under their strength like string cheese, or that they'd strong-arm the ice cream man for more sprinkles, or that they'd go diving for change in the Washington Monument's water carpet. They were bad, bad children, and Duff was a bad, bad supervisor. When he rubbed his eyes in exhaustion and looked back up, Romulus had run off, leaving his stuffed wolf behind. Duff grabbed it off the ground, and cold fear crept up his spine. Remus, while still completely feral, was mild by comparison to his brother. A rumor that circuited Baba Yaga's knitting circle for reformed witches about young Romulus had somehow gotten to Duff's ears. Romulus, being a natural leader, had kindled revolution amongst the other first grade children to overthrow the administration. The kids began tearing off their shirts, cutting up their class's rugs, wearing them like hunters' cows, and with sharpened number 2 pencils in hand, they snarled their shibboleths. Down with Peterson, woof woof, down the hall. Remus followed his brother's lead with a big smile. Consequently, Mrs. Peterson was the school's principal. And the kids duct taped her to her chair. Romulus, like a statue, stood on the wood of her desk, howling a conquering cry. He named Peterson's office Rome in his likeness, and his minions, including Remus, wrote the new title on the walls with crayon. Romulus received a 2-week suspension for putting action towards his collusion. Agent Duff knew that he had to keep his wits about him to find Romulus, and maybe a little help from Remus too. Duff was a tallish man, well, as close to a man as he could be. He knew that he'd grow at least a foot taller to see over the crowd if he was in Vedmok form. But he also knew that knew being a Vedmok instead of an undercover human would cause a big stir back at the PSBI. He'd be a bundle of leaves and twigs. He'd have two big ram's horns on his head, and his beard would grow half a foot longer. He didn't want that, so he stuck with his humanly disguise, a tallish man with some muscle mass, black hair, black eyes, a black suit, a red tie, and a nice fedora hat. But with his chosen facade, he eliminated any chance of using magic. "Hey, Reem," he said to the little feral child, who looked up at him with concerned, dull eyes. "This is going to be okay. This is going to be fine." Remus began to sob uncontrollably. He ran about the crowd of people, pulling on suit pants, skirts, and wallet chains, causing everyone around to turn red. They looked at Agent Duff damningly, which made him turn red. The spark of a great idea only occurred to Duff when a fellow 15th Street traverser called out, "That kid needs a leash." Thank you.
James Carl Jackson has worked for the New York Times, the American Film Institute, and Workaholic Productions. His poems have appeared in magazines including The Bitter Oleander, Rust and Moth, and others. He will be reading his poem, Fast Love.
Thank you. Fast Love. We ran headfirst into love, bricks, stone, cement, and blood. No glass in that window heart. The rhino's horn, sharp and rare. I write about what's not there. Headlights, fog lights. I write to explain this love, this fast love. This rabbit run hole deep dug, and shovels and shoulders and salty skin drowned in tongue. Somewhere over this hill is a burial plot with our names on it. X marks our naked bodies, drunk on desire and gin, and no one knows where our mouths have been. So restore the reservoirs, reserve a seat for me at the theater. Let's sit in darkness, watch the actors eat rare steak, and show love without talking about it. Oh, how to enjoy your teeth sunk in blood. Oh, how to finish what you started. Thank you.
So the next piece is by Mary DiPolito. She has been independently studying the arts of writing, piano, acting, and costuming since graduating Fitch High School in 2014. Her studies have taken place between Youngstown State University and her time living in Sacramento, California. She plans to continue traveling and complete her degree in computer science at YSU. She's not here, so her piece will be read by Bisan. Oh, I knew I was going to mess it up. O'Day. Is that right? And it's called Pine Needles, Fish, Our Love, and Other Dead Things.
My skin was sensitive to the foliage brushing against my calves as you walked me through knee-high brush. I looked to you. Are you sure we're allowed to be here? Of course we're not. We never are, and that's why I love you. It was you who taught me which leaves are good for smacking holes into, thin, flat, and smooth, shaped like teardrops. The veins running through them can't be too thick, or it won't work. I'm 17 and you're 19 and you're pulling me through the tallest of trees I know you once told me the names of. You know everything about every plant. Understand, Mary, that I speak to plants. I see their heartbeats. Ever since I ate acid in Mill Creek, I've spoken to them. If there's one thing you remember about me, let it be that. I remember everything about you. I remember everything about that place, the way the path you made wraps up a hill and around the trees like a spiral staircase, the way the lake feels like hot tea for the first 6 inches of water, then runs ice cold underneath. The way you, the way you would reach out and place your hand on my waist for just a moment when I would stumble walking in front of you, the way you always pulled it back as quickly as you placed it there as if you had done something wrong. Maybe you were afraid I would punch you in the face like I did when I was 14 and met you for the first time. Perhaps you were afraid I wouldn't punch you because then what happens? I am accustomed to the feeling of dead pine needles pressing into my body. I spent my entire childhood letting my feet stomp against them as I ran through every wood in Northeast Ohio. Here they are making imprints in my thighs as I sit cross-legged under our trees while you teach me to smoke weed for the first time. I still can't believe you never kissed me. We went here for years and made graffiti on the stone wall that lines the waterfall feeding the small creek below our lake. Our waterfall, dozens of seasons went by, us here before you finally confessed you wanted me the whole time, yet you never tried to touch me in these years. You told me from across the country, you told me after you left. Everything looks the same, it's no different. I would have met you here if you had the time to come back. I would have let you kiss me in our water under our trees. Nothing here has moved an inch, and yet it all feels strange. Everything is so different because you're gone, and the neighbor's firewood is just sitting there like it has been for years, as if nothing is wrong and you're not dead. I retched on top of it, not because I really had to, but because I wanted to spite it. One smudge on what was a Bob Ross original, I wish I was a giant so I could taint the whole stupidly beautiful picture. I wanted the acid from my stomach to alter the pH level of every inch of this lake, killing every fish, mussel, and duck that dares to act like nothing is wrong. I was going to buy a ticket to see you in California to let you kiss me like you said you wanted to all this time. $514 later, and I'm coming home to see you for the last time. They should have sent you home. You're not from the desert. You're from pine and lakes and waterfalls and creeks. You're from rain in the morning and sunburn in the afternoon. You're from holding me like a bridge in the water, like a bride in the water, spinning me around and dunking my head under. You're from gusts of wind marching through the trees, like the charge of an army, sudden and fierce. You were always my lion. I never want to come here again.
Excuse me. So for issue 12 of Jenny Magazine, we held a flash fiction contest and picked the top 3 winners to be published in the issue. Only one is here to read today, but I do want to read off the names of the pieces and people who wrote them. First place was The Boy Who Thought He Was a Glass of Orange Juice by Tennessee Hill. Second place was Factory Floor by Amanda Stovacek. And third place was Bad Beat by Alex Punsakar. And today Amanda is here and she'll be reading her piece. Amanda Stovacek is a writer and teaching artist from Northeast Ohio. She is preoccupied with star formation and writing that resists. Her work has appeared in Us for President, Rubber Top Review, Jenny Magazine, and is forthcoming in the New Old Stock. And tonight she'll be reading from her piece, Factory Floor.
Hi, thank you, Jordan. So this is not perhaps traditional fiction. It's sort of a hybrid of a poem and a flash piece, and it comes out of as Jordan said in my bio, a preoccupation with star formation. So this is called Factory Floor. We work slowly. Around the cauldron, we argue recipe. Unkempt mix of star stuff, flower of dust reaching 6 million solar masses, cloud plume not visible nakedly. All this will go inside, we know. We argue quantity. Some shout precise, 3.6 billion to the 10th power metric tons, 70% hydrogen by mass. Others, guesstimation, planet full, lung breath of helium. Too many cooks, we are making this painstaking work. Agreement never comes part way. We make concessions of formulaic discrepancy. We adjudicate particle mass. Our cauldron of cloud collapse and bundle of theoretics, the only tools we know. What brilliant stroke of luck if the recipe is right. Some of us come to this occupation by chance, others by meticulous calculation. We are all planetary spoons. Our nebula is a boiling pot. One shot of relativity, and maybe we can radiate our star babies. Star seeds in the belly of cloud. We wander between stoves, black iron, and night shining into pockets of helium and hydrogen. We adjust our chef hats and equivocate on protostars. Just a dash of interstellar radiation, fusion coursing through our acquired star soup. Out of crumble and dust, the baby's winking mirror birth moment like a black hole. Like father and son, like violet and red, we link hands at accomplishments. We toss hats like graduates. We send our stellar babies from cauldron womb and breathe relief like sunshine. No elliptical hindrance on our galaxy. We are milky with stars. We can stave entropy. Thank you.
Okay, so right now we're gonna have like a 10-15 minute intermission. There's still some like sandwiches and vegetables over there for you to get. This is a good time to buy raffle tickets if you haven't already. Our third raffle basket has come in, so now there's another choice for you to donate into. Grab issues, go to the bathroom, which are just outside the hall. So yeah, okay, I'll see you guys in 10-15 minutes.
So our next reader is Brianna Holloway, and she's a sophomore at Youngstown State University with a major in telecommunications and a minor in creative writing. She's 19 years old and from Chicago, Illinois. She enjoys writing short stories and flash fiction, as well as writing comic strips and poems. Brianna likes to play video games during her free time, and is an indoors type of person. Tonight she'll be sharing her piece, Mom Said. Sorry for that.
Thank you. Dad pulled out one of Mom's favorite church shirts and a pair of slack pants. He laid them across the bed and searched her dresser for her favorite curly wig. He then went into her drawer and pulled out a bra and some underwear. I watched as he scooped them up with one hand and put them on the dining room table. Big Sis angrily took them and threw them back on the bed. No, no, no. Mom said she wants to wear white. When Dad was picking out Mom's new bed, he picked out an ugly brown wooden one. He asked if we liked it. Ew, no way. Mom said she doesn't like that color. Get that instead, Big Sis said with disgust as she pointed to a velvet smooth one. When Dad was picking out flowers for Mom, Big Sis was on the other side of the room with sunflowers. Dad, Mom said her favorites were sunflowers. Even I knew that one. When the big day finally came, we saw Mom laying in her new bed. She was sleeping for a long time, too long for me to remember. She was surrounded by sunflowers. Dad picked me up and told me to say goodbye. No, I said. Mom isn't going bye-bye. Mom said she was just going to take a nap.
Darlene Glass, a native of Cleveland, Ohio, currently resides there with her wife and rescue cat. She works full-time as a carpenter, leaving her mark on such landmarks as Cleveland Public Square, Global Center for Health and Innovation, and Cleveland State. She is currently working on her MFA in creative writing in the NEO-MFA program. Tonight, she'll be reading from her piece, Take My Picture.
Thank you. Keep car doors closed at all times. No feeding animals from your hands. Do not pet the animals. Enter at your own risk. I read these signs posted at the African Safari Wildlife Park many times as we waited in the hot July sun to buy our tickets. Free animals that my wife can pet and feed that might attack her at any moment, she is so there. It was her birthday, and the park was especially crowded because it was the 4th of July weekend. It was only 10 a.m., but the sun was already baking us in our little silver Cavalier, and I was already regretting this suggestion. However, I thought it was better than watching the poor caged animals in the zoo looking at me with their sad eyes while flies buzzed around their poor little baking bodies, while they wondered how long their slow death was going to take them to free them from their misery. The safari park seemed like a better choice since the animals get to roam free. Half an hour went by and we were still in line to buy tickets. I looked down at the temperature gauge and noticed the needle rising. Shit. I knew we should have taken my truck. The 111,000 miles that lit up on the dash was not faring well for our little car. I'd been bugging her for a while to get a new car, but her frugalness was making her hold off, that and her indecisiveness. I think she just liked that the car color matched her prematurely aging hair. That, or she just did not want to clean out the CDs scattered all over the back floor. However, I had this vision of wild animals jumping up and down in the back of my pickup truck. I could picture zebras, monkeys, and chimpanzees having a party in my truck bed and shitting all over it. So there we were, with me sitting practically on the ground in this tiny car, overheating and sweating profusely so I could take pictures of her enjoying her wild African safari. That's love, or stupidity, still deciding. What the fuck is going on up there? How long can it take to get a ticket? I asked, annoyed and getting worried about the car. You would think there would be more than one line, said Marie, looking out her window, anxiously awaiting the zebras and giraffes she was going to get to see up close. We finally made it close to the front, and I saw that there were actually 2 lines for tickets, but these dumbasses were too stupid to get out of line and venture to the second booth. I got out of line and went to the second ticket window, and we were in. The temperature gauge was now reading red, so we pulled into a parking space and decided to do the walking safari first so the car could cool down. Yes, that's always us, the 40-year-old women in the petting zoos with no children, everywhere we go. Compared to the not much younger than us parents in the petting areas, Marie's gray hair and no children makes her look like a crazy, lonely grandma. She runs around, knocking little Susies and Tommies out of her way with her chunky butt to pet every animal that will let her, and then chasing down the ones that don't. I usually pick out the saddest one in the corner and spend the entire time scratching and petting its little head and body, looking into its sad eyes and vocally assuring it someone does care and wishing them rescue or for some animal disease to take them quickly. We entered the walking animal safari, and there they were in all their glory, caged animals, with a big sign that said, "Caution, animals may bite." "Take my picture with the sign," she demanded. Although she tried to look scary with her mouth open like she was going to bite me with her perfect teeth, and her hand clawed up like she was going to attack me like a mama eagle protecting her young, the light shining from behind her dark-rimmed glasses just made me laugh. "Look at the monkeys," Marie said excitedly as she ran to watch the gibbons swinging from trees to ropes and back again. Although sometimes embarrassing, when seeing her face beaming with delight like a child who is seeing them for the first time, I can't help but smile. Gibbons, by the way, are native to northeastern India and southern China. Interesting to see them in the African safari park. Baby alpacas. I'd never seen her run so fast. After wasting an hour in the exciting walking safari, the car was cooled down and we got in line for the driving safari. There were several gray-haired ladies approaching the cars to sell the patrons $7 bags of carrots, because you know they're way different than the $2 bags you get at the market, and $4 cups of feed pellets, which is I'm sure what they eat in the wild. Do not feed the animals within the first 100 feet. As soon as we entered the gates, our vehicle was swarmed with those famous African deer we all learned about in school. "What kind of deer are those?" I asked Marie. "The kind you see dead on the side of the road?" We barely moved 10 feet before we stopped, and a cyca deer from the Asian part of Africa was at my window, slobbering all over my shoulder. I jumped when its snout touched my head as it tried to reach in my car for my cup of pellets. Its tan, scruffy fur smelled like wet hay and stale manure, and its nose left a trail of slime on my cheek. "Gross," I complained and rolled up my window. Slimy animal spit sliding down both sides of it. I looked over, and Marie had her window down and was practically hugging a llama from the South American section of northern Africa. Look, look," she squealed, "take my picture." She leaned back and looked at me so I could get her big smile in with the animals. She took out a carrot and started to hand one to the deer. "You can't feed them yet," I scolded her. Too late. The deer was faster than my words, and the carrot was gone from her hand before she could even turn her head. I was anxious to get moving as the needle was creeping up to red again. "You really need to get a new car," I told her. "We're moving," she said. I'm not sure if you can consider what we were doing as moving, but we were in motion. From the pictures I saw on the internet of I pictured rolling lands of green grass. What appeared before us was a worn gray dirt path that wound through half-dead grass and gravel. She did not seem to notice, because now she could legally feed the animals. Do not feed the animals from your hand. Take my picture. She had her hand holding tight to the carrot as the deer was trying to take it from her. She held so tight while I was taking the picture that the carrot actually broke in half. Greedy fuck, she scorned as she used all her might to push him away, a trail of slime on her arm. As she was posing for another picture while feeding the animals from her large cup of pellets, Teeth grabbed the edge of the cup and began pulling. In true Marie fashion, she was not going to let this animal take her carefully portioned food from her. She still had zebras and giraffes to feed. He kept pulling and she kept pulling back. A game of tug-of-war was on, and that psycha had met its match. Let go of the cup. They said not to fight with them, I told her. I still have more animals to feed. He's not getting all of it, she said as she tightened her grip. I have a whole cup full, I reminded her. Got it, she said. I will triumph, she said as she held her arm up, proudly showing off her victory cup with a big chunk bitten out of the top of it. All I could do was laugh. And here we have the famous African Texas steer I narrated as I pointed out the long-horned steer approaching the car. These must be from southern Africa. We kept moving at a rapid pace of 4 miles an hour, and the silver bullet was not liking it. We followed the circular dirt path, and I found a spot away from the animals where we could pull over. I shut off the engine and sat back in my seat and relaxed. This is so fun, she giggled. I'm glad you're having fun, I said. We were sitting for about 5 or 10 minutes, then we saw off in the distance a bison. Of course there would be a bison, otherwise the Texas steer would feel left out. It's coming this way, said Marie, practically jumping out of her seat. Although he was still 50 yards away, she was getting her carrot ready for him. As he came closer, she began waving it out the window like a dull, dirty orange flag. I got a carrot for you, she cooed to him. He was excited. I could tell from the look in his black eyes. Somehow, with his huge, humpback body and horns that protruded from his brown, fur-covered head like Satan, I did not feel good about this exchange. I forgot about the camera sitting on the dash as Marie fed him a carrot. He gently took it from her hand and slowly chewed his orange treat as she watched. He's so big, she said. He bowed his head as he ate, but his eyes were on Marie. He finished his carrot and came to the window for another one. She rolled her window halfway up to give him the hint to leave. Clearly, she had been somewhere else for the last half hour and did not realize how persistent the animals were. First, he nudged the glass. Then, he tried to shove his huge head through the open space between the window glass and the door frame. His odor wafted inside the car. Add some stale urine to the manure odor, and that's what a bison smells like when it's halfway in your car. Give him another carrot, I said. No, I still have to feed the zebras and the giraffes, she said. We still have a whole bag left. Give him another one. No, she said as she rolled up her window. Go away, she told him through the window as he glared at her still smiling face. She was giving him mixed signals, and I could see the wheels turning in his cold eyes. I should have expected his next move, but I only ever usually see this in bullfights and horned animals fighting each other in the wild of Animal Planet from my 54-inch LCD. He backed up a few feet, lowered his head, and slowly charged the car. He headbutted Marie's door and started moving sideways. Ah, she started screaming. What the fuck, I yelled. I told you to give him another carrot. He pushed the side of the car and it started rocking slightly, and I envisioned him pushing us off a non-existent cliff. Drive, she squealed. I was so in shock as we were being shaken like a magic 8-ball, starting the car apparently did not occur to me. Give him a carrot before he smashes in your door, I yelled as I started the engine. I'm not giving him one now, she said. She can't say no to our dog when he's begging for table scraps after he's eaten his dinner, but she'll say no to a 1,500-pound bison that is bashing his head into her door. Priorities. She still had giraffes to feed. I put the car into gear and got it moving, and we outran the hungry beast, which did not chase us at 10 miles an hour. Obviously, that was too much work for him in the blazing heat. We were laughing hysterically as we drove to safety, and after we were out of mortal danger, Marie's first question was, "Did you get a picture?"
Okay, so our next reader is Nathaniel Stokes. Nathaniel Stokes is an undergraduate English major, amateur poet, and fiction writer studying at Youngstown State University with previous publications in Penguin Review. Tonight, he'll be reading his poem, The Invisible.
Is this thing getting taller? The invisible. Vibrant words that pierce the night. She was the want that makes me scream. She was my hope without a name, and she was only real to me. She was gentle as a rhino and as subtle as a storm. Yet with all the winter's piercing depth, I had never felt so warm. Her intellect both sharp and bitter, her tongue a razor's edge. Her every worth made flesh my stone and pushed it from the ledge. She was the screaming in the sky and the want that made me dream. She was my rose without a name, and she was real to only me. Though I knew her more than she herself, I never saw her face. She was closer than my own cursed skin, though we never shared a place. Yet in the soundless strokes she was all of my life. Wrapped in death she was my grace, and in her soulless void I found myself through rejecting human race. She was the fire in the night. She was the thread that held my seams. She was my love without a name, and she was only real to me. To put letter to her form was to see through all of me. Yet I know her as I know my hand, as the acorn knows the tree. Though my own name she has never spoke, and my song shall never sing, we never once pretended, though we pretended everything. She was the love I vowed to know. She was the hope that gave me dreams. She was a heart with endless names, and she was only real as me.
Lauren Simmers is a first-year fiction student in the NEO-MFA program. When she isn't writing or doodling, you can usually find her giving exact change to her favorite hot chocolate joint, Einstein Bros. Tonight, she'll be reading from her piece, 3 to Life.
Hi, I just want to preface this before I start. Because I know news doesn't travel as fast as I think it does, but last semester at Akron, there came a story that a fraternity brother stabbed another fraternity brother on campus. No one knew why exactly. I think they were both really drunk. But I knew the guy who was stabbed and ultimately died, and I was even better friends with the person who did it. So I wrote this piece after that just to try to get emotions out. So this is 3 to Life. If someone would have asked me where I would be 3 years from now, another memorial for another dead friend would be the last thing I would think of. Yet, here we are. It's December, and the nights are below 30 degrees now. Each person there emits a puff of smoke from their nose and mouth. For a second, it looks like something caught fire. Over 300 puffs of air. He was only 23. I'm less than 6 months from that point in my life. A shiver runs down my spine. My toes are starting to go numb, and I have to keep sucking back in my runny nose. I guess I shouldn't say anything. At least I can still feel something. At least I know that when I walk back into that house, my toes will eventually unfreeze, going back to that sweet 98.6 degrees. His body will never be warm. The prayers continue over the silent crowd. Tears fall from the faces of the grieving. I silently laugh to myself because no one looks attractive when they cry. But it does cause a chain reaction. One person cries, then 10, then 50, then 200. I cry for different reasons. I cry for 2 lives lost, not just one. I cry the silent, sobbing tears for someone who will never be the same. Nothing is black and white. Nothing fits perfectly into a category. They try to put him in one, but they have to break him to do that. My phone chimed with a text. I did a double take when I saw the name, Mallory. I haven't heard that name since I graduated in May. Lo, I'm so sorry. I know how close you were with Duncan and Kendall. If you need anything, just let me know. I stared at my screen, my hands starting to shake. One thought entered my mind, and I was shaking so hard that my teeth started to chatter. What happened? You don't know? What happened? Mal, you're freaking me out. There was one beat before she replied again. Fuck. I hit the call button next to her name, my hands tremoring uncontrollably. Mal, what's going on? She sighed and took a breath before continuing. Kendall and Duncan had a party last night, and Kendall stabbed Duncan in the heart. Duncan is in the hospital in critical condition, and Kendall was arrested. Her tone was so matter-of-fact that it scared me. I stared at my light gray bedroom wall for a couple seconds. I opened my mouth to speak, and nothing came out. What? I know. What are you talking about? How did this happen? No one knows. I guess they were both drunk last night and they got into an argument about something and Kendall stabbed him. Is this a joke? This is Kendall we're talking about, I yelled. I know. I'm so sorry. I'll keep you updated with anything I hear. I'm here for you. We hung up and my body was shaking. I was out in a blizzard with a short sleeve shirt. My hands were clammy and sweating. I sat on my bed just looking at the floor, memorizing it. My breaths were short and I felt like there wasn't enough air in this place to breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4. I counted the microscopic strands in my beige carpet, trying to pull myself together. Kendall? The guy I've known since I was a freshman in college and went through Greek life together? The guy who I drank with on so many occasions? The guy who protected me from the assholes and the feelers? The guy who laughed at my dating disasters and walked me home at night? That guy did this? There's no way. They have the wrong person. The cops got the wrong name. A witness gave a false account. He's taking the blame for someone. That has to be it. The longer I sat there, the more I felt my body sag into my bed. My throat hurt at the tears that were stuck in my eyes. There was nothing except the cold and the numb. My phone chimed the next afternoon. Lo, Duncan passed away. I stared at it, fear climbing up my throat. I had been hoping and praying for another outcome, for both of them. Duncan was so annoying when we were freshmen. He was one of those people that discovered alcohol as soon as he entered college, so he was drunk every chance he got. His fraternity nicknamed him Drunken. Whenever someone would say his nickname, he would whine, "No, guys." He made a roller coaster with his voice. I liked him up until alcohol and weed consumed his life. He had a cute, smiley face with long blonde hair. He always said hi and used my name when he would pass me. I appreciated that. I liked that he used names. That was a lot different from the losers I graduated with. I know in the last couple of years, he turned his life around and was working a lot harder at his grades. He joined a couple other organizations and tried to get as involved as possible. At his memorial, President Wilson said that the University of Akron would be giving his family a degree for Duncan in May. That was when he was supposed to graduate. He would have liked that. It's been uncomfortable around my friends since this happened. Last time I heard, Kendall's charges now included murder along with felonious assault. Tim told me that Kendall didn't even know Duncan died until he went to his arraignment. Tim said that when Kendall found out, he just put his head in his hands and wept. I wept too when I heard. I feel like a vessel for contained emotions. There's too much of everything to get it out all at once. I'm slowly getting the toxins out. My doctor suggested bloodletting. I talked to some fraternity friends that I trust about Kendall, the people who understand. We all agree that it was an accident and that we would back him up. That makes me feel better, to an extent. I'm sure the courts won't see it the way we do. I've been feeling so conflicted about everything. When you watch Cops or CSI Miami, you clearly know which guys are the good ones and which are the bad. But this time, it's different. I'm grieving for both of them. I know the person who killed him, and I know he killed him, but that didn't stop me from asking everyone I knew about how he was. That didn't stop me from texting him, saying that I'm here even though I knew he wouldn't reply. That didn't stop me from checking on the internet to learn how to visit an inmate. That didn't stop me from writing a letter to reach out in any way I could. I don't know how to deal with this. I'm not the same person I was a week ago. I'm more detached and I zone off, staring into space. I don't think my mind can handle this. Kendall's one of my good friends. He has been for the past 5 years, and I hurt for him. I don't know what his future looks like anymore. Nothing is black and white. Nothing perfectly fits into a category. They try to put him in one, but they have to break him to do that. Thank you.
Rosie is a junior majoring in chemical engineering. In her free time, she thriftily enjoys pursuing creative outlets such as singing, drawing, and writing. Someday she hopes to have a career in which her academic and creative passions are integrated into one. Tonight she'll be reading from her poetry and painting review.
My poem's entitled Freshman 15. The moment you start to get ready for college, you're flooded with those passing on their knowledge. Get involved, do your best, it goes by fast. But one phrase is their most common forecast. Watch out for the dining hall and be sure to work out. But no one told me what the Freshman 15 was really about. 15 free t-shirts you get the first week, and 15 brand new places to choose from to eat. 15 confusing buildings you must learn how to roam, and a 15 square foot room that must become your new home. 15 pairs of pants that you shoved in one drawer because you couldn't leave home without bringing one more. 15 brand new faces that live in your suite that come with 15 new names that they'll need to repeat. 15 credits you'll be expected to pass, which means 15 long hours of sitting in class. And 15 worn-out notebooks filled with illegible words because you frantically copied every last thing you heard. 15 late-night study sessions that keep you awake so you won't need to explain your grades over Christmas break. 15 minutes to hustle and get to your last class, counting down the minutes till it's Friday at last. 15 nights before class you stay up way too long in laughter or deep talks or sharing favorite songs. And you remember how you didn't even know these people 15 weeks ago, but you feel as if they fill empty spaces that you had and didn't know. So although many people warned about the dreaded wait, they never truly stop and give it to us straight. It's way more than just pounds that we can all add, but people and memories, some good and some bad. Because you walk into college with your life in 15 boxes, and you'd never be prepared for how strong the aftershock is. You come in one person and go out someone else, and your friends all leave for break with a piece of yourself. And you all go to your real homes further than the 15 feet apart, all with more knowledge and friends than the start. So although many warn about what they think it means, I'd never want to lose my Freshman 15.
J. Lee Strickland is a freelance writer and poet living in upstate New York. His work has appeared or is forthcoming in Pure Slush, Sixfold, Atticus Review, Latchkey Tales, Icarus Down Review, and others. He is at work on a novel drawing from his experiences as a youth in the anthracite coal mining region of northeast Pennsylvania. Tonight, he'll be reading from his piece, Chorney Demonte.
Thank you, Jordan. Just want to say I was really honored to be selected for publication in Jenny magazine. I like the central conceit of honoring working class values. It's not often you see that in a literary magazine. And this particular story draws upon my experiences in northeastern Pennsylvania, in the coal mining region, which has a lot in common with Youngstown, the kind of rust belt, pallor, and rundown feel, and at the same time a lot of spirit. So I'm going to kind of jump into the middle, so just to set it up. Story opens with an elderly man picking coal in the abandoned strip mine south of Wilkes-Barre. And he's walking along with his bucket and his hammer. He's got his hammer and he's picking up little pieces of coal and he breaks them into smaller pieces, puts them in his bucket. So he heard a helicopter in the distance. These days the sky was full of things flying around. The roads choked with traffic, people going every which way, doing what? Going to those big fancy stores full of plastic junk. He never went in them. He and Hanka still went to Stan's Market every Saturday for their groceries. He went to Ed's Hardware for tools and parts. Ed had a fancy new sign out front, but it was still Ed behind the counter. He interrupted his reverie. The helicopter sounded much louder. He looked up. The helicopter was flying low, appeared to be coming right at him. It swung to the left in a smooth arc, traveled a short distance beyond him, and hung suspended in the air. Then it settled to the ground. There were 2 men inside. One of them stepped out. He was dressed in a white polo shirt, tan slacks, and what appeared to be expensive Italian shoes. He walked up close to the old man. His dark hair was slicked back, and he wore aviator sunglasses that hid his eyes. Nestled in the thick, curly hair that sprouted from the unbuttoned V of the polo shirt, the old man could see the glint of a gold crucifix. "This is my land," the man shouted over the sound of the idling helicopter. "You're trespassing. You can't pick coal here." The old man did not have to pick coal. He was 75 years old. They bought their coal, 6 or 7 tons at a time. He had worked the mines most of his life. He had worked deep underground, 12-hour shifts in the dank, dangerous dark. He'd worked in the breakers, and when the great machines left after scouring the mountainsides, he had worked in the factories, working, always working, to give life to his wife and children. But he liked the coal, the look and the feel of it. He liked the silence of the deserted rubble fields, and the coal just lay on the ground. It was a shame to waste it. He said nothing. His bucket hung from one hand. The other still held his hammer. "What's your name?" "Peter," the old man thought. "Peter Kovalenko." Still he was silent. "You speak English?" The man raised his voice. "Capiche?" The old man spoke English. He had not given up the singing vowels, the chunky, full consonants of his native Ukraine. Unlike his 3 children, he had not adopted the lazy mumble of American English, but he spoke well enough when necessary. Dumb Polak. The man grabbed the bucket from his hand. The old man did not resist. The man held the bucket away from himself, as if he feared contact with the dusty coal. He emptied it on the ground. "Now, get out of here," he advanced a step. "I can radio the cops if that's what you want." The old man didn't move. He stared at the bucket in the man's hand. After another moment, the man handed it back. Bucket in hand, he turned and shuffled off the way he had come, skirting the bowl of noise that surrounded the machine. The helicopter lifted off. It flew low over him. In the turbulence, his hat danced off his head, and wisps of white hair whipped his ears. Then the men and their machine were gone, thrumming into the distance, north along the great scar of the mine. He realized he was shaking. Why? Had that youngster frightened him? Peter Kovalenko, who in his life had seen real horrors? He had fought in Russia at the age of 15, again in France for another country, in another war. Still his hands trembled, and he thought of his wife as he trudged back to the car. At home, Hanka was busy in the kitchen. "Your favorite meal," she called out when he came in. He could smell the parsley potatoes, the pechenia. "I got arrested today," he said. "I think I got arrested." "By the police?" Hanka stopped her bustling. "No, by a man in a helicopter. I was picking coal up by Ashley. There's good coal there. They landed the helicopter right by me." "But they weren't police?" "No. The one said he owned the land. He dumped out my coal. He told me to leave." "Somebody owns the land," Hanka nodded. "He probably has a big fancy car. And a boat, too." She put 2 plates on the table. "Go wash the coal dust off your hands so we can sit down and eat." Peter washed, but he wasn't hungry. That night he struggled to sleep. He kept returning to the sound of the helicopter, the greasy sheen of the man's hair, the opaque mystery of his sunglasses, the crucifix at his chest. His mind turned these over and over. It made a goulash of them and simmered it until dawn lightened the windows of the room. He went to the basement and started a fire in the furnace. He did this every day, winter or summer. The furnace also heated the water for washing, laundry, dishes. 2 or 3 shovels of coal were enough to heat the water for the day. He thought about that sometimes when he was picking coal. A single bucket of coal could heat water for 3 or 4 days. When he reached the kitchen, he could smell pampushki baking. Some people did not like garlic for breakfast. Peter loved garlic, and Hanka made pampushki fresh every morning, even though it was just the 2 of them. She set a cup of coffee in front of him and a mug of kvass, his first drink every morning. She set the pampushki on the table, and Peter pinched off 2 of the doughy rolls from the steamy mass. I see my criminal has his appetite back. Hanka moved close behind him. I was tired last night, he said. You had fights with the blankets. I hope you won. He grunted. Make me some extra eggs? He made it a question, not to sound bossy. She laid her hands on his shoulders and massaged them. He was a powerful man still, his muscles as hard as the coal he picked each day. And what will you do with yourself today? I'll pick some coal, he said. Not by Ashley. There's coal everywhere, woman. I could go around the corner and pick coal in Casimir's cellar. He's burning oil now. He says it's easier. He shook his head. Easier to go to Arabia when the best fuel is in his own backyard. He returned to the basement to check the fire. The coal had turned a shimmering, indistinct, molten red that eluded the eye. Above it danced a layer of ghostly blue flames. He nodded, satisfied. A perfect burn. I'm going to leave it there and leave the exciting surprise ending for you to read online at jennymag.org. Thank you.
Okay. Robin Steers is a former technical editor who spent the last 25 years constructing crossword puzzles, writing novels, and being a room mom for her 2 daughters. She's a junior at YSU, majoring in professional and technical writing and minoring in linguistics. She aspires to a life of drinking coffee, creating stuff, and sleeping, and I love that. She'll be reading her poem, My Splendid Daddy.
Thank you. Excuse me. My splendid daddy. Don't you worry, babe. Splendid daddy's got plenty. Applebee's for dinner. We get the 2 for $20. A pack of socks and rose art crayons and off-brand sweets galore. My splendid daddy makes it rain at the dollar store. Money is no object when we go to Mickey D's. 2 burgers for my lady and add some extra cheese. He buys me fancy lingerie from Walmart and TJ Maxx. If I want a video game, he takes me straight to buybacks. We get the best table at Denny's because he's nice to the cashier, and we ride around in style in his Chevy Cavalier. My splendid daddy keeps me high upon a pedestal and buys cubic zirconia because it's more sensible. He takes me on vacation to Virginia and Vermont, and I can use his Netflix password anytime I want. My splendid daddy knows how to excite me after dark. Cheez-Its and a box of wine for movies in the park. I love the book of coupons he gave me for Valentine's Day. And I love my splendid daddy. He's 50 shades of meh. Thank you.
So for this issue, Penguin Review partnered up with the Student Government Association for their student essay contest. So Jacob Schreiner-Briggs, the Vice President for SGA, is going to come up and talk about that.
Hi, everyone. So this is the second year that student government has partnered with the literary community at YSU to hold an essay contest where we ask students in 500 words or less to reflect on certain themes regarding the city of Youngstown, the university, or both. And so this year we had several entries, and we actually were planning on having 3 winners, but we had 3 judges, R.J. Thompson, Jordan, and Kim Urig, who's a local speech and debate coach and a local writer. And it actually produced a statistical tie for 3rd, so we have 4 winners. All of them will get prizes, and we're so very thankful to them for participating, as well as to all of you, Jordan, the Jenny, Penguin Review, for putting on an event like this, because I think it's really important, and I'm happy that SGA has the opportunity to contribute to it. So before introducing the first place winner, there are 2 winners who could not make it tonight. Jared Leiter wrote The Forgotten City, so if we could just give him a round of applause. And Abdullah Al-Sarafi wrote My YSU Experience, tied for 3rd. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce the winner of this year's SGA Essay Contest, Dom Fons, who will read his piece, Tony.
Tony. Cody isn't from Youngstown. He's from Altoona, PA, the town that sings and dances a little more than Youngstown, the town that glows a little more. The morning dew glistens only a tad bit extra. At least that's what I've been taught about my city since childhood. My Youngstown-bred identity is a maelstrom of depression and crime and poverty. Murder Town, USA, Bomb City, USA, a rusted-out Idora coaster cart. But Cody brings a new funk to Youngstown. He's a musician with Bob Dylan curls. He came to town with purity in his chest, while my own leaked sickly sour. This remained my outlook until we met Tony. Some October Friday after class, neck deep in finals work, Cody and I made the time to grab drinks at Susie's Dogs and Drafts. It was like any other afternoon out, a shot of bourbon and a few beers. It was never uncommon to gift a cigarette to passers-by standing out of Susie's wall-sized window. But when Tony came by, due to Cody's inebriation or just his soul, we talked in length. We talked long enough to learn Tony was having trouble with his old lady. He had to walk so many blocks to get to the WRTA on time, that he'd already made love to a regrettable bottle that day. His slurring, our listening, flowered in Cody a good Samaritan. What he would say was his Christian retribution from his incessant sinning. That wouldn't allow Tony to walk home that night. I had no say in the matter, and Tony himself had reason enough for pause. He'd ask us, "You guys aren't up to anything, are you?" As far as I knew, we weren't. Cody bought the man a few more drinks, telling us of the days long past of his collegiate basketball career. He said that he was a star and that he made a few mistakes in his life to earn his lot. Cody had no pity but complete understanding. The stories of Tony were gashed scars on a macho face. Each scar a tale of a brawl, a drunken slip, a self-inflicted wound. His face was of a nameless man, any of us who walked the streets of Youngstown. Cody's face must have been virgin, Christ-like, because if the Ohio skies made the bipolar decision to rain or sleet or snow or even stay clear, Cody would not have Tony walk in it. It would have been unholy to do so. Apprehension latched onto Tony, to me, after we jumped into the car. The irrefutable facts of the matter were that Tony didn't know us and we didn't know him. We played the radio softly and talked about Tony's crazy partying days, his mom, and his lady issues. But before I knew it, this stranger, this man I was taught never to let hitch a ride, was home safe and sound, his feet left unsore. My city is not evil, and it took a bushy-headed kid from Altoona to teach me that. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And then with that, I would like to welcome to the microphone one of our ties for third place. That's Amanda Miller, who will be reading for you tonight commemoration food. Amanda.
Hello, everyone. Like he said, the title is called Commemoration Food, but I would also have liked to titled it Eat, Pray, Pierogies, and you'll see why. When my friend told me she was getting a divorce, I suggested we get pierogies. As she told me, nothing seemed more consoling than homemade dough filled with fresh mashed potatoes. My friend agreed without hesitation. Of course, we would go to a tall brick church nestled in the feral neighborhoods of old Youngstown to find these pillowy delights. Despite how melancholy an impending divorce can be, the thought of us sharing a laugh over the perfect pairing of carbs dripping in golden butter gave us something to look forward to. I am aware how Youngstown an act of coping and bonding this is. It didn't occur to us to get margaritas at one of the many Mexican restaurants that dot Mahoning Avenue. We cast out the notion to get warm domestic beer at the cheapest downtown restaurant. No, instead we will approach the situation together and savor this regional dish. I will order pierogies with extra onions and she will choose to have the ones stuffed with cheese. It is all temporary and this texture doesn't hurt. The church ladies wear their sweatshirts speckled with seasonal pictures and hairnets that float just above their curled hair. They serve us and their God. Some of them have never been with another person all their life. Some are divorced, widowed, or on their 7th partner in life. The basement holds none of the stained glass grandeur that the rest of the church has. Youngstown takes pride in its churches. The buildings are often the most well-maintained lawns outside for blocks. During the Lenten period, the fish fry is comforting. It feels like the right place to celebrate among the immigrants and the people we came from. Maybe their spirits in this place will whisper to us. We learned that pierogi is derived from the word festival. My friend and I order 6 pierogies each, served on plastic plates with plastic forks. We barely get through 3 chewy, cinched pockets. The butter spills from our mouth, and we lean back in the folding chairs, spent from the planning of this new future and the heavy dough. For the time we feel fulfilled, the unsure subsides. We make plans to move into her into a rising cost apartment. More importantly, we aim to meet more often, to see each other more. We fantasize about all of the other foods we can consume on our way through Youngstown, dining over squares of cheese covered in marinara sauce, sipping coffee in a gutted out house made into a cafe, or testing various forms of pasta served from those with thick accents. All of these things can give us permission to pause. Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for this premiere. I just want to thank everyone for attending. This was a great turnout. So I'm very grateful. Without all of you readers and supporters, neither of these magazines would exist. I also just want to thank, as always, my wonderful staffs for both magazines. If you want to stand and wave for those of you who are standing so we can give you a round of applause. Putting together literary magazines is a lot of work. It's a lot of reading. And without them, I would not have been able to do both of these magazines by myself. It's just physically not possible. And I don't know, I really should write these things out. Other thank yous then would be for our faculty advisors. For Jenny Magazine is Christopher Barzak, who's back there. And Penguin Review is Dr. Tiffany Anderson, but she was unable to make it tonight. I believe she's out of town. Thanks to the SGA for partnering with the essay contest again. I'm glad that that is a thing that exists and that we are able to help it continue. And then I want to thank our Jenny Magazine designer. I think he left because I know how to put together a print magazine. I don't know how to put together a web magazine. So without him, Jenny Magazine wouldn't be a thing. We'll just give him a round of applause even though he's not here. So That's it. That's all I've got for you tonight. We're ending early, which is great. There's still copies of both the companion zine for Jenny Magazine and the Penguin Review if you haven't gotten one, if you want to take one home to your family members or anything. It looks like there's still food. If anyone wants to take food home to eat like tomorrow and have like your whole weekend meals planned, please do, because I'm not going to eat all those sandwiches myself. And yeah, okay, I think that's it. Thank you, everybody.